John Bergamo, who passed away exactly 1 year ago and retired about 6 years ago from CalArts, was an amazing classical percussion player, a wonderful mallet player and snare drummer and timpanist and composer. He was an excellent drum set player, studied with Max Roach at the Lennox School of Jazz, studied with Paul Price at the Manhattan School of Music. In the 60s, he got interested in tabla, and then that became his passion. All hand drumming, then that became his style of hand drumming, which he took the congas and frame drums and cajones and anything he played by hand. He was a genius at. He would just touch a drum and you get a tear in. I swear to God, that's the kind of musician he was. And we miss him deeply. And he influenced hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, not just here, but around the country, because he did a lot of clinics, he did things with the Progressive Art Society, he made albums. And tonight what we're going to do is we're going to play his music from the early days, 1963, when John was 23. And Paul Price commissioned a piece called Interactions, which the current percussion ensemble, who didn't know John, didn't study with John, is going to play. And I'm going to conduct, and I started studying with John in 1968, so I know him pretty well. And then we're going to do a vibraphone solo that Jeff Brenner, who studied with John in the 1980s, is going to play. Came out from Chicago just to do this. And then there's a group called the Repercussion Unit, which John started with some students, with Jimmy Hildebrand and Larry Stein and Greg Johnson. Lucky Moscow was in the group, and Ed Mann, who's now on the East Coast, unfortunately couldn't be here. And we're going to play 4 tunes from the Repercussion Unit. And then we're going to play, we're just moving chronologically. We'll take a little break, and then we're going to do a marimba solo that John wrote in 2000. That Justin DeHart, who studied here in the 90s, is going to play. And then we're going to finish up with John's passion, his real, true passion from the beginning on, which was hand drumming. And he started a group called the Hands Ensemble, which still plays today. And they're going to be joined. The 3 of them, Randy Gloss, Andy Grusha, and Austin Wrinkle, are going to be joined by the wonderful tabla master, Shweta Chatterjee, who's over there. And our wonderful Persian percussion player master, Humayun Khomeini, who's going to sit in with him also. So I think what you're going to get tonight is pretty much the large retrospective of what John was into going back to when he was 23, right until the very end. And I hope you really, really enjoy it. Right now I'd like to introduce the current CalArts Percussion Ensemble. We're going to play Interactions. I just have one more quick thing to say about what's coming next. John had, those of you who knew John know what I'm talking about. He had probably the greatest sense of humor of anybody I've ever known in my life. And he put it in his music. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff about modern music, a lot of very funny things, a lot of jokes, a lot of stuff going on. And as you're going to see the rest of the night, there's going to be a lot of laughing going on, the percussion in especially. I gotta tell you though, this piece here, this next piece, there's a good story behind this piece that I was there to witness. John was teaching at the University of Washington up in Seattle, where I was a 19-year-old percussion student trying to get started. I had no idea what I was doing. And met John. And it was my lucky year. And John was invited to play a percussion solo on one of the big new music concerts at the University of Washington. And so he pulled this thing out as an improvisation and just put a piece of paper up on the stand and made up the name of the composer. and improvise. And I think I was the only one in the audience that knew that that's what was going on. And I didn't even know what was really going on because I had no idea about what the new music scene was. But anyway, he later on made it into a finished score. And he calls it the Three Pieces for the Winter Solstice. It's an amazing piece, and there's humor in it. There's serious new music, modernism in it. There's graphic scores. There's wild rhythms. There's hitting the vibraphone and everything imaginable. And this to me is this and repercussion unit show exactly the nature of John's humor. And with all that humor, that's why a lot of us stay in the music business, because the music business is a damn funny thing. You gotta laugh, or you won't laugh. We thank John for giving us that energy. This is Jeff Brenner, who came out to Friday.
What a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for coming. My name is David Rosenboom. I'm a composer, performer whose day job is being Dean of the Herb Alpert School of Music, as we call it now. I'm really thrilled to see many, many faces of people who were here when John was here. And students and faculty who are here now, and I particularly would like to welcome all of the parents and visitors who came to CalArts Weekend and are here now for the yes. Thank you so much for attending. And this is not the final, but actually the penultimate event of the weekend. This is being followed by a dance concert at 8 o'clock for those who want to stay. There is a fairly significant setup change going on right now, so I'm going to vamp a little bit here. But it's really an honor to be here to witness such a wonderful chronological, musical retrospective of John's music. I think about John. I also was fortunate to meet John before I ever came to CalArts, well, long before, actually before CalArts was built, but one encounter was at a place called the Center for Creative and Performing Arts at the State University of New York in Buffalo, which in the late 60s and early 70s was one of the landmark communities of American experimental music. And John had been there as a percussionist. And one of the nice things about that program, which is historically very important, is that it hosted a kind of emerging direction in 20th century, Western 20th century music, which we now think of as kind of what identifies our school, and that is the notion of the composer-performer or performer-composer. The idea that the era of time in Western music when composing was over here and performers were over here, and the composers would give something to the performers to read and they would perform it, and that was very much a separate activity, is really coming to a close in Western music. It was a kind of a 250-year historical bubble in Western culture, which is now returning to the way music has been for nearly 5,000 years around the world, where those activities are not really separated. And John could be thought of as a model of that, of the performer-composer, because he integrated his performing practice and his composing practice in tremendous ways. And DJ is right. The percussion program at CalArts became legendary very early on. It became known as the place where real innovation was happening and incredible performers were emerging. And so John was right at the core of that and really a kind of model of that. And so I've always thought of him as that kind of person. We had various sort of crossings of paths for a number of times before I came to CalArts in 1990. And I'm reminded by DJ's story about John's early life. And he did study with Paul Price. I went to the University of Illinois as a composer, and though I was a violinist and pianist, wanted to expand my skills, so I studied percussion with Jack McKenzie, who also studied with Paul Price, and knew John even back then in the late 60s. And Price was the symbol of the world's most perfect snare drum buzz roll. I could go like that and never make an interruption. But it's interesting how one goes from that kind of a trajectory to the incredible blending of genres and styles and world cultures and influences that have happened in percussion. And you could kind of say that in the history of 20th century music in the United States, that percussion was where some of the greatest innovation actually took place, because it went from being an activity that was usually seen in support of a larger ensemble, like the percussion section of an orchestra, to moving out front, to becoming really a virtuoso solo and ensemble medium. And we're proud that at CalArts, at least from the 70s onward, we have been leaders in that. You're about to hear the repercussion unit, which also was legendary for its drawing on musical styles and various kinds of musical functions that really threw out the idea of genre. There were basically no borders between styles. And I still have the repercussion unit Christmas album. I don't know if any of you remember that. Yeah. That was one of the, it sits on my shelf at home, and I now have a new turntable, and I'm looking forward to Christmas when I can play it again. It was really a landmark album. How are we doing, guys? We're about finished. Okay, well then I'll let you breathe for a second. I think I've covered enough time, and I'll get back to my seat and we can enjoy the repercussion unit. Thank you.
It's great having the opportunity, although not under the greatest circumstances, to play this music again. John and I and a few others back in the mid-70s had this idea of, in addition to the great music that we heard before from the CalArts Percussion Ensemble, let's hear it from them again, Interactions. I actually had a chance to play that music before I knew John when I was 19 or 20 years old in the University of Buffalo. And then Jeffrey Brenner, great performance of 3 pieces for the solstice. It's fun to welcome back to the repercussion unit Amy Knowles, who played many unit concerts with us, including many, where she joined M.B. Gordy in the backline bass in doing repercussion unit programs for thousands of kids in many schools throughout the country. Also want to thank Chris Garcia, who we've had the pleasure of playing with not only in this country, but on stage last in Germany at the Frankfurt Jazz Festival. It's great to have him with us. And of course, I have to mention my 2 colleagues as the original founding members, along with John, that are here with us tonight. Jimmy Hildebrand. We've been always waiting for Jimmy to be ready, but every time we wait for him, it's worth it because he just always delivers. And it looks like my good friend Greg is bringing me something. I really appreciate that. Greg Johnson, who has redefined multiple percussion, which you'll see a little bit more of later. Thank you so much for this.
It's not for you, but by the way,
Yeah?
you know, as great as it is to hang with some of the players and some of the very stalwart, stellar individuals who made this possible, I would like, and we would like, and I think everyone here would like, to recognize at this time the 2 ladies who made John Bergamo life rich and full and possible. I'd like to ask Janet Bergamo and Padu Bergamo to please come up on stage. it's really, you too. And just now I'm trying to. I really am, because we all miss John, and it's really something extraordinary to have this evening with all of you here. I can't tell you the incredible feeling it is to be with all of you tonight. Janet, just please, if you would.
Well, actually, John's pretty much saying it very eloquently with the aid of some wonderful musicians, so I don't have much to say. Thank you, Padu. Thank you, Damien, Bill, Kyle, for being here with us. Two things occur to me, and I believe them both to be true. One is that without CalArts, John Bergamo's life would have been very, very different. And at the same time, CalArts would have been a very different place without John Bergamo. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Janet, one more acknowledgement before we play our next tune, and that's I'd like to welcome into the repercussion unit David Johnson. David has been a student of John's longer than anybody else in this whole place. When I first came out to CalArts to audition for John, David was here. David was a student of John's in Washington State, and I think he would probably agree with me. It was the best thing to do to follow him to CalArts. But we're really happy for what David has done in putting together this concert tonight and asking us to be part of it. So we'll honor that with a rendition of Square One featuring David on the vibe solo. Thank you very much. Square One. Let's hear it for David again. Yeah. We're now actually going to do something that's not in the program. A little special gift from Chris Garcia, and he actually laid this on us just a short while ago, and we thought we should maybe break it out. So I'd like to ask you to go up in front and tell us a little story about this, and then we'll get everything ready, and we'll join you up there on the apron of the stage as soon as you introduce it.
First of all, thank you so much for being here today and celebrating John in all the many facets that John is. We're actually many small facets of John. The one thing that he gave to each of us was ourselves. He always said, go do it, just do it. No matter what it was. And in 2005, we had a ceremony quite like this for John. And since then, there's been many others in Texas and California and all across the country celebrating John and his music. But in the 1990s, there was a percussion ensemble that used to play his music every year, and he would come as a guest and play with us out of San Pedro. And we would do his music. So the thing is to do different versions of his music every time he came. So one of the pieces we did was Pyrie Bowl. And we actually did a patty cake version of it, you know. We actually did that. And it's on film, you can hear him just laughing hysterically also. And in thinking of John and looking back over the arc of all of his work, he will obviously be celebrated in many different ways, and in bringing Indian music and Indian drumming and hand drumming to the world, actually. I truly believe that. And knowing that John was from New Jersey, and we gave it to John for his birthday, but I asked him, please don't play it in front of people, because it's just for him. So he said, okay. So then I went somewhere, I was at a gig, and on the way back I had a phone message from him and Janet, laughing hysterically because they were playing it in the car. So that was my gift to him from myself, and actually from all of us, and from Miroslav Tadic. So this is going to be the doo-wop version of Pyro Ball, and you're all welcome to come down and participate and snap your fingers and do whatever it is you'd like to do. Almost.
Okay, how could I forget to introduce the drummer in our band in that one, Charles Levin. I think the oldest living music school graduate. He was a student when I was here, then I left, and then I went to his master's recital 30 years ago. It's unbelievable, he's still playing drums, Charles Levin. All right, we're going to close this first half with Foreign Objects.
Thank you very much. Chris Garcia, Jim Johnson, Larry Stein, Charles Levin, and Big Gordy, Jimmy Hildebrand, and Amy Knowles. We're going to come on a break now, although there's going to be some music during the break, on the engine cowling over there. John found an engine cowling, which actually belongs to a jet engine. He wrote some music for it. I'm going to do my best to play that music right now. And then we're going to come back and do the 5 pieces to solo marimba that Justin DeHart is going to play, which is heavily influenced by world music. The only marimba solo I know that has this quality. And then we're going to finish off with a hand ensemble. So we've got a little break right now. I'll reset up. We have now moved into the 21st century with John's music. And these are the things that he did, that he wrote in the last, couple of decades, or the last 15 years of his life. We're gonna start the second half off with a really cool marimba solo piece called 5 Short Pieces for Marimba. And you'll hear marimba stuff like you've never heard before on solo marimba, if you've ever heard my solo marimba. And you're going to hear it by one of the best percussion players in LA, who's a student of John's, and Dan Kennedy, who's a student of John's also. And many years with John Bergamo. Justin DeHart, who is just a fabulous player, also plays tabla and drum set, just like John, and is a wonderful new music player. So I'd like to introduce Justin DeHart playing 5 pieces from solo marimba by John Bergamo.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around. You guys are fantastic. This night is so special. It's special. John was extraordinary. I mean, I can think very clearly a line before I knew John and after. I mean, he changed everything for me. He gave so much, not just to me, but to everyone on the stage, to so many of you in the audience, and so many people who couldn't be here. He was truly extraordinary in every way. Besides being an incredible musician, an incredible person, he was truly selfless. And people talk about selflessness, and there's always some ulterior motive, but with John, no, he was truly a selfless person. And I've seen him literally take the shirt off his back. I mean, oh, I like your shirt. You should have it then. Oh, John, that's a nice drum. It's your drum. He really was so giving to so many people that you couldn't help but fall in love with him the moment you met him. And so many people that I come across, John Bergamo changed my life. Oh, when did you study with John? Oh, I met him at PASIC and we talked in the hallway for a minute. He changed your life, wow. But he had that power. He was just this kind of person that the second you met him and had a conversation, you were immediately best friends with him. And tonight is very emotional for me. It's a lot of fun to hear all of the music, but it's also, with John, I get a little choked up, I get a little tongue-tied, because I would be nothing, literally nothing without him. He is everything to me, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a friend. He gave me everything, and every day I think of him, every day I miss him so terribly. And I'm just so grateful that I had the chance to know him the way that I did. And one of the greatest things that he gave to me and to these gentlemen here was starting this group Hands Ensemble. And we started in 1997. We started in 1997 and we're still going strong, and John is with us every time we play, every time we hit the stage, every time we record, he is with us. And I just love him so much. And Janet, when you said that, you know, but the way that John made CalArts, but CalArts also made John and vice versa. It's so true. The way we learn, the way we study, what we study, how we study is so much of John. And so even those people that are students now who never got a chance to know John, you really do get to know John, because you can't walk through the halls, you can't hear Indian music at CalArts, African music, gamelan, all of this stuff, all of this kind of cross-pollination of music. You can't hear any of it without really tipping your hat to John, because that was how he was, that was his way. So I'm not going to go on and on. We're going to play one piece for you. It's called Shraddhanjali. And this is a piece of John's that the title means thanks or praise to one's teacher. It's a Sanskrit word. And this piece is very dear to us because we keep this in our repertoire as a way to always pay that respect to John. And we're grateful tonight to have two people that John really loved and he respected and admired to join us on the stage, Sopan Chaudhary and Human Pamudi. And so we're going to play Shraddhanjali for you, and then we're going to invite everybody to come up on stage and play a piece called Pyru Bowl. Pyru Bowl was written in 1974. It's written a different date in your program, but 1974. It was written for Ed Mann's recital. And since then, this piece has become a standard in the repertoire for world percussion. All over the world, this piece has been performed in all kinds of ensembles and formats, and it is really, truly a standard in the repertoire of world percussion. So we're going to play Shraddhanjali and then Pyru Bowl with everybody. Thank you so much for coming.